Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're afraid of being on a list, forget about it, because you're already on a list. Where do you think those agents that are knocking on people's doors in order to retrieve what they call illegal items get your name from? The Fourth Amendment is dead when it comes to these tyrannical monsters, and they'll stop at nothing to completely place you under their control, be it with intimidation or flat-out tyranny. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is what they will use in order to sway any political contest their way, and more importantly, to control any of your behaviors that include a transaction of goods or services, as long as you need to exchange value for value using their money. You will be monitored, rewarded, or fined depending on what type of way they feel on that particular day. And your very freedom to participate in the economy will be permanently at risk, and eventually you will start to self-censor your behavior in order to retain the meager standard of living that you will eventually have to get used to. So get used to eating bugs, drinking recycled poop water, burning up in the summers and freezing in the winters. But don't worry, because according to them, you will be happy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm talking about is the FEDNOW that they've admitted to being brought public in the middle of 2023. This FEDNOW is just a different name to a CBDC, a central controlled digital currency. You see, they don't want to have the controlled word in that system. So instead, they changed it to FedNow. I want to give credit for this clip that I'm about to play you to Joe Brown from Hersey Financial. I watch his channel on an everyday basis because he's a very smart young man, a lot more educated than I am, I can tell you that, when it comes to the economy and to finances. So go check out his channel. But this gentleman that you see here on the upper right hand corner, his name is Mr. Neil Kashkari. And ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the people that has landed us in the position that we are in economically and financially today. Because he is one of the advocates early on that said, let's print. We have a printing machine. We can print to infinity. Well, look at what's happening now with inflation, with people not being able to live the standard of living that they've been living, exerting the same amount of labor and of their time that they were in the past. It's because of this inflation that the government has created. And yes, the Federal Reserve and the government are one and the same, in my opinion, of course. But I truly believe that. Well, this gentleman kind of slipped up, in my opinion. I'm pretty sure that the other Fed presidents are wondering why in the world did he say what he's just about to say here in an auditorium full of students at, I believe it's Columbia University. So just listen to this for yourself. This is an insider. This is one of the people that sits atop an ivory tower eating steak while you have to choose between hamburger and fake meat.
I keep asking anybody at the Fed or outside of the Fed to explain to me what problem this is solving. I can send anybody in this room $5 with Venmo right now. Right? No, seriously. So what is it that a CBDC could do that Venmo can't do? And all I get is a bunch of hand waving. I get a bunch, well, maybe it's better for financial inclusion. Maybe it's better for cross-border remittances. Maybe. Is there any evidence that it is? And, they say, well, what about China? China's doing it. Well, I can see why China would do it. If they want to monitor every one of your transactions, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. If you want to impose negative interest rates, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. And if you want to directly tax customer accounts, you could do that with the central bank digital currency. You can't do that with Venmo. So I get why China would be interested. Why would the American people be for that?
Well, I can't speak for every single American, but I would say that the American people are not for that. However, most American people have been put in a place because of the policies of this government and the Federal Reserve that they may very well fall for it. They may very well accept this new system that they want to unleash on us because they may see some hope that they'll be able to feed their family and keep them warm in the winter, not knowing that as soon as the system becomes commonplace in every household in the United States, that those who implemented this system, will have full control of how much food they can put on the table, of how warm they can keep their children at night during the cold winter months. They won't know this, or we won't know this, until it's too late. I want to go ahead and dissect this article with you, because there's a lot of key phrases, words, whatever you want to call it, in here that we have to understand, that the average person reading through it may just skip and not notice. Here it says that the Fed's instant payment service, FEDNOW, is set to launch by July of 2023. That's less than 1 year away, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, I've been telling you that we have time? We have time to prepare. And I'll tell you what, if this is implemented, you better be as prepared as you can possibly be. I'm not political, but I certainly hope that when these elections take place, coming up here in November, that enough patriots are put in place that they will stop this. The Federal Reserve is on track to deliver an instant payment service called FEDNOW between May and July of 2023. The central bank's clearest timeline yet for a new system enabling settlement of U.S. payments in seconds. I've told you this in the past, and I'll tell you again because we have a lot of new community members. And that is that every time in the history of the United States, whenever our monetary system has changed from one form to another, it is the people that suffer. It is the people, ladies and gentlemen, i.e. you and me, the layman, we the people, not those that implement these new rules and regulations that we have to abide by. We are the ones that suffer. Take a look back at 1933, when they passed the executive order, the fiat order, by edict, meaning that it was not law, it just existed as an executive order, where the people's gold was taken from them and then turned over to the Federal Reserve. Not many people know this, that when the gold was taken from the American people back in 1934, that it was given, then turned over to the Federal Reserve. But anyways, I digress. When that system took place, and after FDR, one of the best presidents in the United States, according to the textbooks, confiscated the gold from the people, once he had everything he thought he was going to get, he then revalued the price of gold from $20.67 to $35, effectively putting an inflation tax directly on the people, the working class, of I think it was 40 to 50% or something like that. But overnight, their cost of living went up by at least 50%. Well, that was a change of the monetary system, and who did it hurt? Back in 1971, when they took the last vestiges of real money away from the Federal Reserve note by decoupling what is called the US dollar from gold, who is it that it hurt? On that day, August 15th of 1971, our monetary system changed by edict, by fiat. And who suffered? The people suffered. With inflation, that oil embargo that people keep talking about in the 70s, that wasn't because there was no oil. That was because they didn't want to take our dollars. There was plenty of oil tankers sitting offshore ready to unload. Back in 2008, before the birth of quantitative easing, i.e., extravagant money creation, that was a change of the system. Why? Because in no time prior to 2008 had the government and the Federal Reserve come out and said plainly, we are going to create hundreds of billions of dollars. And in all actuality, they ended up creating trillions of dollars without our knowledge. But what happens when you add trillions of dollars to a monetary system. It changes the value of those dollars. So that, in my opinion, was a change of the monetary system. Well, now they've kicked the can down the road so far as to where the can almost has no can left. It's wore out. And now they have to change the monetary system again, not to save us, the people, but to save themselves, to keep their power and keep us under control. The FEDNOW service also potentially negates the need for the creation of a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. And ladies and gentlemen, don't let them fool you. The CBDC and the FEDNOW are one and the same. They'll be able to do the same thing with the FEDNOW, program the money in it, than they can with a centrally banked digital currency. It's the same thing. The FEDNOW service will transform the way everyday payments are made through the economy, bringing substantial gains to households and businesses through the ability to send instant payments at any time on any day, and the funds being immediately available to recipients to make other payments or manage cash flow efficiently. Let me ask you, how much do you trust the Federal Reserve? How much do you trust a private institution of whom we do not know who the shareholders are, that control our money? How much do you trust them? How much do you trust an institution that is completely untransparent? When's the last time that the gold that we supposedly have, the treasure of our country, being gold, monetary treasure, when's the last time that was audited? I think it was sometime back in the 1950s. The Fed has been testing the system with a limited number of banks and institutions, but Brainard called on the financial institutions, service providers, and software companies to adopt the FEDNOW service now to ensure the system will work smoothly come next spring. The time is now for all stakeholders. And who are all the stakeholders? The banks, ladies and gentlemen. That's who the stakeholders are, the banks. What you don't understand is this. You know, when we got all that stimulus, when they pushed out stimulus payments to a lot of Americans, most of Americans, who is it that they were really paying that money to? Well, what did most Americans use those stimulus payments for? To pay their mortgages, to pay their bills. That's who they were sending that money to the banks. That's who they were sending that money to. Because most Americans took those monies and paid the bills that they owed to banks or large corporations that have these politicians in their pockets. Why all of a sudden do we need to support instant payments? If we need it so bad, why don't we just do it right now? Why didn't we do it 5 years ago? Why didn't we do it 10 years ago? We've had the technology to do instant payments. We've been using credit cards for decades. Why all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, have you asked yourself this? Do we need to do this now? Why do we have to do it now? We have to get on board with this, or else the world is going to end. Not our world. Their world will end if we don't transform to this new system that they want us to shift over to. The FEDNOW, which will enable consumers and businesses to send payments instantly, could offer some of the same benefits as a central bank digital currency. I would say that it's the same thing. And this Fed Governor, Michelle Bowman, has said that the FEDNOW may deliver many of the same benefits as a Federal Reserve-issued digital currency, while senior administrator officials have also pointed to the FEDNOW service as an alternative to the CBDC. Like I said, it's the same thing. They've been working on this for years. The Fed has released a study on CBDC, but has not made a decision on whether the U.S. should adopt one. Officials are thinking through what needs a CBDC would fulfill after the release of the FEDNOW system. Rolling out the FEDNOW system would involve upgrading back-office processes, evaluating accounting procedures to accommodate a 7-business-day-a-week, arranging liquidity providers, and putting in place a new technology to interface with customers. They already have this new technology in place, and they will use it as soon as we adhere to this new system. The Fed maintains that making funds, listen to this, I hope you're still here for this. The Fed maintains making funds immediately available will help Americans living paycheck to paycheck. Why would that? Why would that? On Friday when you get paid, isn't the money already in your account via ACH? Isn't it there already? I'll tell you what, my retirement paycheck is supposed to be paid out on the first of the month. And I always get it at least one day prior. And if the first of the month is going to be like on a weekend, like on a Saturday or a Sunday, I'll have it that Friday. So what's the problem? The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, that they've run out of runway. And they have to change the system because they have nowhere else to go. And you and I will pay the price. I've often said that those of you that are always screaming about the way that things are and that we should take this right away and we should take that right away, the powers change in government all the time. And one day it may be you who will be losing your rights and your freedoms. Those same rights and freedoms that you are now advocating be taken away from someone else just because you don't agree with their ideology. I think we all ought to agree that we are all Americans, and we all ought to agree that we ought to be free to live our lives the way we want to live them, as long as we don't step on each other's toes. So ladies and gentlemen, prepare for what's coming, because I think this is coming. Unless some kind of a miracle happens and we get patriots in places within our government that will actually stand up and take a stand and stop these type of freedom eliminating policies or executive orders or laws from passing, we are all going to be facing this. But there is hope in the end. People will finally wake up and see what this really is for what it is. And they will not take it. And there will be a fight, unfortunately. And on the other side, I can only hope that we end up with a republic where the form of government is there to protect your rights and your freedoms instead of taking them away. Having said that, have a great weekend. Thank you very much for joining in. Thank you so much for joining in on yesterday's live stream. Congratulations to all of the winners, and thank you again to Nutrient Survival for... They didn't really sponsor that live stream. They just came in and gave away a whole bunch of stuff, right? Because they're pretty awesome. Have a great weekend. God bless you all. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out.